Mom gave me leftovers to leave, too, like I can't get food in Toronto. Here's some Tupperware, meatloaf. I'm lying, it wasn't Tupperware. It was just old margarine containers. Make sure that makes its way home, Kelly. Really, Mom? There's a spaghetti stain in here. You can't get... And you know that wasn't from a lack of scrubbing, because she scrubbed it so hard the labels are right off this thing. But I know it's a base cell lid with a parquet bottom because it doesn't fit properly. You've got 4 elastic bands wrapped around this bad boy.
Well, this is Kara Stelmachik. I'm the Marketing and Events Coordinator for the EA Rawlinson Centre of the Arts in Prince Albert. And joining me now is the first act in our winter-spring season of 2021, Prince Albert's funniest son, Kelly Taylor. Thanks for joining us, Kelly.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I guess we're going to start off by just addressing what's happening right now for you, being at home with COVID. What's the reality of COVID been like for you?
Ooh, not good for an entertainer for sure. A lot of my work's been wiped out. So this will be the first time I'll actually be on a stage since I did a small show December 18th. But besides that, everything has been Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Invent and all that kind of stuff. So looking forward to actually seeing live people, even though the numbers will have to be low, but to see people in person will be nice.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you, like you said, you've been doing some stuff on your own. Is it to an empty room when you're doing your online shows, or has it always been like for hire, or what's it been working like?
No, like the first thing I would have did, I guess I would have been at the radio station back then. We did a Facebook Live, so you don't really get any feedback. And now there's Zoom, which you'll see a few people on the screen. I know a lot of people that are better in technology will have it on a big screen, which would be ideal because then the faces would be bigger, but I do everything from an iPad, so it's almost, and they usually have to mute it too because there's feedback. But like my brother said, I've been training doing stand-up for 20 years with no laughs, so it's no different right now than for me.
That's delightful feedback. Very nice. So people might not know this, but one of our regular box office people here at the center is Donna, who is your mom, and so she's here now, and you're at your parents' place where the internet, you said, is a little bit better. So
I changed. I came right by my router, so I'm not even at her house because I ate the leftovers. There was barely anything there, so I kibosh, came home to eat.
I'll have to let her know she's slacking on the leftovers. That's hilarious. So, Kelly, we went to school together. Class of '96, Carleton. You were a valedictorian. That's when I knew you were funny, is during the graduation ceremony. It's not weird to not run into people who you graduated with from Carleton. It's very conceivable that we never had any classes together, but that's when I knew. Yeah, so that's when I knew you were funny. So when did Kelly Taylor know he was kind of funny?
I don't know. I guess my dad is very funny. My brothers are funny. So I kind of knew it from a young age. I remember just like you'd get to a new sporting team or a new person in a class, and I always felt that I could break the ice with. I was never a loud and in your face type person at the start. I would pick my spots, but it just seemed like that's the way my head always thought. Like some people are very smart academically. I wasn't that way, where I would see the times to insert something funny. People would say something, and it always, maybe it's because I was the youngest of 3 brothers, and they were always burning you. Like everything was about burning someone. So as soon as someone said something, it's like my mind was already trained to insert something right there to kind of be funny. So I was always in training from a young age. I loved comedy. I remember watching like David Letterman. I loved when Letterman had comedians on. And then after Hockey Night in Canada on Saturdays, it was always Saturday Night Live. So I just loved to laugh. And that was kind of my favorite thing, was just humor.
So you're also a teacher. I'm just wondering, like, I think wasn't Jerry D a teacher too for a while? Like, is there something about being a teacher that makes you funny, or what's the deal with that?
Well, I don't know. It could be any occupation. Jerry went from teacher to stand-up, whereas COVID has wiped out so much of my work. I'm doing the reverse Jerry D. I'm going to start as a stand-up and then transfer over into being a teacher. So that might be a thing. But I don't know. The teachers, I guess, could be able to deal with groups of people. So it would be, and you're talking in front of people. So I guess it would help that way, even though I didn't really teach much. Like I never had a permanent job teacher. I just subbed for a little bit, but I'd imagine that talking to a group, because that's, even if you are funny, if you're in stand-up, talking in front of a group is probably the most crucial. Like, I guess you could be a writer and you could be in comedy some other way. To actually be a legit stand-up, I guess, talking in front of people, you might want to be very comfortable with that.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So in your bio, you had made mention of the Just for Laughs appearances. So, you know, we've seen it. I mean, some people around here might have been lucky enough to have been in the audience for a Just for Laughs festival. What's it like for a comedian to actually get to perform on that stage?
Oh, that's the Stanley Cup of that is the Stanley Cup of comedy right there. It's funny. I'm going to backtrack when you said someone from the 8 might actually be there. There was actually a few people from Prince Albert in Just for Laughs when I recorded my special, and the one kind of had like a pot light off this one pole. And Hannibal Buress is a famous comedian from New York, and he's like this next comic. And they usually don't say where you're from. They'll just maybe give like a little bio. This person's done this and this, and then he goes from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, Kelly Taylor. And then when I hear this, whoa, Prince Albert. I was like, who would know from Prince Albert? And it's a darkly lit room, and under this pot light is my best friend's parents. They were in Montreal for the golf tournament, and then they got tickets to Just for Laughs. So I was like, oh, and you're doing a TV taping special. They're like, my first gap was like, oh, Lucille and Doug Tenerico are over there. So it was like, whoa, threw me for a little loop. But Just for Laughs, to get Just for Laughs is, because I've done it a few times, but the first time is just amazing because I was newly into stand-up. Like I hadn't been doing it a long time, so it was like a real wow factor because every comic that's doing real good is there. So you have your, like anyone, you'll have a Jerry Seinfeld, you'll have a Dave Chappelle, and the after parties is all the same. It doesn't matter if you're like if you've made Just for Laughs, you're there, so you're one of them, and you're just like, oh, excuse me, and you're like going through. Like I remember, it wasn't my first time, but even the second time, I say excuse me to get through a doorway because Jimmy Carr is a huge comic in England, and Jim Jeffries, a guy from Australia, like are two of the biggest comics in the world. It's like, oh, excuse me, and I was like, oh man, like what are they talking about? I'm sure they're talking about different gigs as opposed to me going to bump into some of my Canadian friends. Like, have you done that gig up in Fort Mac? Like, so but it's pretty cool. You're around all those guys, but the wow factor kind of loses after you've been doing it so many years because you just realize you're just one of them too. We're all doing the same thing. We're just telling jokes on stage. Some have bigger stages though.
Exactly. And speaking of that, sharing the stage, you are going to be sharing the stage with 2 other comedians as well. It's not just Kelly. You're bringing a couple of friends along here. So let's talk first about Dakota because she's funny. I've seen some of her stuff online too. Tell me a little bit about her and what you know about her.
Yeah, I haven't worked with Dakota a lot, but she's hardworking comedian in Saskatoon, setting up all kinds of stages for a lot of up and comers, and that just really respect her work ethic and everything she's getting done. I know they were doing when COVID was happening, they're having outdoor shows in their backyard and just grinding it out. And I think her and Dylan, they're actually married, are the 2 really catalysts in Saskatoon that are making a lot of stages available. So doing a lot of great things in Saskatoon for that community. You know, being from Prince Albert with a family now, I don't get around to doing that. But to start comedy, you need to get on stage all the time. And that's how I started. I was in Saskatoon at the top when I first started, and you get on stage like every night and you work on material. So what they're doing in Saskatoon is exactly what they would need for that comedy scene right now. And I haven't actually seen them for a long time. Well, I'm not even working with anyone, so it'll be nice just to actually hang out with a few comedians.
Cool. And Dylan, of course, you kind of mentioned him, Dakota's husband. You have quite a different history with Dylan, though.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about the story about the bronze medal for bravery, which I never thought I would, get to interview a person about. But here we are. Why not? 2021 here. So tell us about your incredibly storied history with Dylan Williamson.
Yeah. So and he's got a twin brother, and they're identical too. So I can't even tell them apart, anyways. Like each time I see them, I was like, I don't know who's who. And they always grow the exact same facial hair and same hairdo. Like, come on, they've got the exact same builds. It's and they're like, by identical, I mean like super identical. So I had both of them in the car. I even forget who's driving. I don't know if it's Dylan or Dustin. And then we had another guy, Ben Baus, was in there, and we were coming back from a show in Steenan, Saskatchewan, and we drove through Wadena at about I think it was like just before 1:20, and it was complete. It's a small town, like we're just on the edge of town, and it's complete darkness, and just this kind of fire start up, and we're like, what the heck? And then we're like, is that something starting on fire there? And then I think it was Dylan driving. He's like, I'll look for somewhere to turn around. We're like, buddy, there's not a cop sitting in the ditch waiting to nail you for an illegal U-Ball. Like, hurry up, turn around. Because like fires take off. Like, it's not like you just have your fire in your pit. I've never seen like something like a building actually start on fire, because it just starts to build, and we're like, "Whoo, man, this motel's starting up on fire." So it was just perfect time, and we got there, hammered on all the windows. It was almost comical. Like, we went in to like tell the owner as the fire was coming through the front door. He doesn't speak English. The water taps barely had any water pressure. The garbage cans had cracks in them. We couldn't find a garden hose, and I thought it was done. And then the last second, Ben gets this fire extinguisher right as it's going up the soffit, so it would have been gone. And he got it. Then after that, he's like, "Oh, start back up," and sure enough, it did. But then by then, we got a case of water bottles and all this other stuff. So it was just really a perfect timing. Like, if we'd have drove by a minute later, it probably been too far gone, because we just got it in time. And if we'd have went by 30 seconds before, we'd have missed it just as it fired up. So it just like, even when we got the medal, I told the guys, like, "Hey man, like, we didn't do anything special." He's like, "You'd be surprised, a lot of people wouldn't stop." I was like, well, unless you're giving medals away to people who are jerks, like, who sees something on fire? Like, tough one. Those people should really get out of there, but I got a place to be. So
Sucks to be them. That's awesome. They're right though. Not a lot of people would. Maybe people would stop and try and call for a fire truck or something. If you knew, like in Wadena, I don't know who you call for fire. It's like, what do you even do?
It got a little weird. Like, the one part where the fire gets in the soffit, we started so we try to like pull away because we had to go through the doorway of fire. The guy's like, "Whoa!" And then like a little wood part fell down. I remember when the wood part fell down on fire. I was like, "Oh, this is a little bit legit right now."
Maybe that medal was worth it then, right then. I was like, yeah, I think that was probably warranted.
My mom had to go and take it for me. I was gigging in Calgary, so I couldn't even go there to pick it up.
Oh, that's great. No, it's great. I'm excited too to have something on our stage other than, live music, of course. We love it. We need it. We thrive. We want it so badly right now. But comedy is going to be a pretty good addition to people's lives right now. I think we all need to laugh. So is that your main goal from this show that we're going to be doing in February here?
Yeah. And that's where I'm mainly getting most of my work right now. Usually, like, people like, "Oh, we have a Christmas party, we have this." It's actually most of the gigs I'm getting in the email, like, when I talk to the people, is just people that need a morale boost. Like, I'm doing, teachers are going through, like, they've got to adapt all this, morale's low. So I'm doing lots of different teaching conferences. I've did a few different nursing functions, like all those people on the front lines, like, all the stress they'd be through. So it's a lot of the stuff I'm doing right now is just trying to lift people's spirits. And that's what comedy really is, to give yourself a break from every day. So as much as, I probably like watching live music more than stand-up. I'm not going to lie on that. That's just the way I am. Because when I watch live music, it's something I know I can't do, so I appreciate it more. So, but right now, I think that's what people do need. They need a laugh. So the people who, I know the number is going to be, we're only set at a certain amount. So the people who do come, it'll be a nice experience just to get away from everything and have a laugh. And that's the sole reason right there, to escape these tough times we're having and just go have a laugh and get away from it all. And I remember before I would finish shows, and you say you do a show every night for 10 days straight. It's just like going to work. You do a show and you're done, and it doesn't really pass your head. But then you sometimes talk to people after a show, and someone talks to you that you don't know what these people are going through in the crowd, and someone's had a tough time and they need this, and they just come up like, "Oh man, I needed that. I went through this." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So it's going to feel good, not only for me to be on a stage, but just to cut loose. And some people are having a good time, so I can't wait.
Well, as it sits right now, at the time of this recording, we have one spot left in the audience for you. One live ticket in the auditorium, one. So technically, I think we could call this a sellout.
Okay.
But there's always somebody who's like, if there's a seat left, it's not a sellout. They get very, they really get picky on the minutia of your terminology. But I think it's a sellout at this point, unless there's one person who wants to come. We still
Let's just say if that ticket doesn't go right before we start this thing, I'm going to buy it to say Kelly Taylor sold out the Rawlinson, even though the numbers are lower.
Fantastic.
Back after this COVID thing, I want to do it again, and then we can put it in the headline. Get your tickets fast. This guy sold out last time.
It's a great idea. I'm writing it down. I'm the marketing person.
There we go. We're getting it down.
Exactly. But the live stream is available too. People pick the price they want to pay. So we like to make it accessible that way too. Some people don't want to go out, even if it's 30 people in a 400-seat theater. They're still a little bit nervous, and we respect that. So the live stream is still an option. They pick what they want, and you get 50% of those proceeds as well.
Oh, so
yeah.
Pick a lot. Going broke over here.
Not all just us. This is like the tip for for Kelly's show. So again, that is on February 26th. It's going to be a great night. Keep them warm with laughing, and leave them wanting more is always the good goal in February.
Great. Thank you. Away. Always leave them wanting more.
Exactly.
It always goes back to Seinfeld.
Exactly. Thank you so much for taking this time, Kelly.
Thank you very much, Kara. All the best.